You can raise your questions through the chat box or question box. Your question will answer immediately or end of the session. So I will share my screen to show you the PPTs or the course, whatever we are going to do in this session. I'm repeating, 100% you will get the recorded session in any mode. Either I will share you through YouTube or you will get the share record in your G Drive. So thanks to our training partners, Quality Testing and the Tea Time Testers magazine, welcome you all to our online WebDriver session. So let's start the session. So the course content will be, we are going to talk about, just give me a moment, let me check the questions if you have. Okay, let's start. So the course duration will be 25 to 30 hours, or we can it can be more than 30 hours, depends on the requirement or the understanding of training. In this session, we are going to cover Selenium IDE, the complete Selenium tool, which is known as IDE, remote control and WebDriver. IDE is a record and play tool, but the remote control and WebDriver, it is a scripting tool. You have to write your program to automate your test cases. So we have to choose one programming language which Selenium WebDriver or remote control can support. From Selenium site, Selenium HQ is the official site for Selenium tools. We can come to know the supported language for RC or WebDriver. So Selenium WebDriver and remote control will support Java, C#, Ruby, Python, as well as these are the list of programs where WebDriver or remote control support. So in this, we are going to choose an open source, a well-organized, object-oriented programming language, Java. So we are going to choose Java as our programming language for Selenium RC and WebDriver. So before we get into the actual automation code, understanding a core Java is a must. So we are going to spend a couple of hours in core Java programming. The core Java we are going to learn as a point of tester, not as a developer. When I say not as a developer, it means that we are not going to spend a lot of time on programming to core Java, but to understand the WebDriver, how much we need Java. We have to understand what is class, interfaces, superclass, inheritance, collections. The major part of core Java we are going to learn for first few hours. It can be from 8 to 10 hours. After that, we'll see how to use Selenium IDE tool. Before we learn WebDriver, when I say I know Selenium, the first question, have you any idea about IDE or RC? Yes. To get that what is and how it works, we are going to spend some couple of hours in IDE and RC. Then we'll move to Selenium WebDriver, which is our goal of this session. We'll talk about and understand each and every major feature of Selenium WebDriver. how to interact, how to open a browser, how to interact with the web element. What is web element? We'll talk about. How to reach the web element through WebDriver. How to click, how to type, how to select. We'll talk about the features of WebDriver. Once we are familiar with what is WebDriver and how it is worked, the final part of this session will be developing a framework. When I say framework, it should be a reusable component. The end of test execution, the result must be clear and you must be configured your project anywhere. So to reach these goals, we are going to use additional tool called TestNG, which is a testing framework, and for a continuous integration, we are going to use Maven. You can choose either ANT or Maven, TestNG or JUnit. This is the user choice. But in current market, the combination of Selenium WebDriver, TestNG and Maven is most wanted. So we are choosing that as our test framework component. To read the data or to maintain the data, we are going to use Excel sheet. So again, we need an API or jar files or any tool to handle to understand the Excel sheet. So we are going to use JExcel. So in this session, as a whole, we are going to use Eclipse as an IDE, a place to write our code. Of course, we need a JDK. You can use JDK 1.6 or later. The latest one is 1.7. Apart from IDE, the Eclipse IDE and JDK, we are going to use TestNG, Selenium and WebDriver, and there are few plugins with Firefox browser to identify the web elements. We'll see why the web elements needed and how to identify the web elements. We'll talk about that in this session. So the whole session content will be 3 tools, 3 components of Selenium IDE. Apart from that, TestNG and Maven. At this end of this session, at the end of 30 hours, a person should able to develop his own testing framework for any given web application. This is the goal of this session. After completing this session, whoever attending or whoever taking this training should able to write a Selenium WebDriver automation test case or test framework for any given web application. So let's start with the session. So before we talk about core Java or why we need core Java, we'll just walk through the official site of Selenium. Okay. This is the official site of Selenium where you can download the components from the download tab. You can download IDE or a server and client drivers for remote control, as well as a web driver depend on the language we choose. And there is a documentation part in the same application, the same website, where you can read and understand about the tool. Okay, it gives the brief introduction of IDE, how to use IDE, and how to use remote control, WebDriver, all the basic knowledge you can get from this documentation. So you can read these user groups, chat groups, or lot of blogs available for your support. Whenever you find any difficulties on your coding, you can reach these Google groups to find a solution. So before we start using the tool, we'll understand who developed the tool and why it is called Selenium. A team of ThoughtWorks. A ThoughtWorks is an international well-known testing company. The team of ThoughtWorks employees start developing a small JavaScript for automating their web application testing. A guy whoever returned the JavaScript feels that this works good and they want to evaluate or explore the code in much more effective way. So the first tool, Selenium IDE, comes into picture. In that time, around 2002, 2003, 2004, when you say automation tool, in market, there are very few. Windrunner, LoadRunner, QTP. QTP is one of most available playback tools. So when they try to name their own playback tool, Selenium IDE, they think about the name HP. Mercury tool. In chemical, mercury is one of the chemicals. To overcome the effect of mercury, just opposite effect of mercury, a chemical component, selenium, they use. So the ThoughtWorks team decided to name their own tool as Selenium, which is as against as mercury tool, or overcome the hidden things of mercury tool. They decided to name their tool as Selenium. So before the Selenium tool comes into market, we have a chemical component called Selenium. So this is the history of Selenium tool, why they name it as a Selenium and how it is developed and comes into market. So still it is an open source. Anybody can do their part to improve the Selenium IDE or other components. So we keep repeating that Selenium is an open source. You don't need to pay anything to use or implement Selenium tools in your project. Simply download, understand how to use, proceed with your automation. It's very easy to learn. Of course, we are going to learn in 30 hours. Very flexible. You can use this tool to test any browser. Any available browser, you can use this automation code which is written in WebDriver, one of the Selenium components. So we have a lot of options to locating the elements. We talk about what is this element and how to locate this. It will support cross-browser testing. In any web application testing, cross-browser testing is one of the most wanted. We have to do a cross-browser testing. We have to verify whether my application will support all the browsers or not. So to validate this cross-browser, you can use your Selenium WebDriver automation tool. You can use any programming language which will be supported by WebDriver. It is not one or two, all major languages: Java, C#, PHP, Python, Perl. You can write your code and start executing your automation. So after first, second version, Selenium now shakes its hands with Google API, which is known as WebDriver. When I say Selenium WebDriver, there are two sets of APIs working together. One is a core Selenium API. API is nothing but application programming interfaces. A predefined or well-written code available to implement their functionality. So those Selenium 2 WebDriver is a two components. One is the core APIs of Selenium and the APIs from WebDriver, which is a Google product. So they both combine to give a very flexy tool to automate a web application. So in upcoming sessions, when I say WebDriver, it is known as Selenium WebDriver tool. So the whole Selenium tool consists three parts. One is the IDE, Integrated Development Environment. The second one is Selenium RC, Remote Control. As a TV remote control, you can sit somewhere else to control your browser. Remotely, you can control your browser interaction. The third one, the advanced latest Selenium tool, is Selenium WebDriver. So what is Selenium IDE? It is an integrated development environment. As we saw, it is written in pure JavaScript. The tool is developed in JavaScript. So Selenium IDE, you cannot install as a standalone application. You must install as a Firefox add-on. Firefox is a browser. Selenium IDE comes along with Firefox to test only in Firefox browser. You can test your web application only in Firefox through your IDE. You can record the interactions, whatever you are performing manually, and you can playback or execute a number of times using Selenium IDE. So as there are a lot of advanced components called RC and WebDriver, we are not going to use this Selenium IDE for very stable as well as long running test cases. The drawback of Selenium IDE is it will support only your Firefox browser. So we'll see how to install and start using your IDE tool in actual upcoming session. The second component, the Selenium remote control, is a tool. There is no UI for this tool. As we discussed, you are going to write a programming script to use and to test your web application. So you have to download few jar files. jar is nothing but Java archive. These remote controls is written in Java. As we are going to use Java as our programming language, you're going to choose Java-based remote control API. Download a jar file, include in your build path. So a Java programmer can understand what is build path. And you can start implementing the interfaces or classes available in remote control. As same as RT for WebDriver also is a programming tool. So before you understanding how to write or how to use your remote control and WebDriver, there is a need to understand a Java component. So when I say I'm going to write automation test case, you have to understand how to write in Java language. So to reach your remote control or WebDriver, we see a programming concept of core Java. And once we return our programming script for remote control, you can understand why we need another tool. Why there is a reason or there is a need for WebDriver when there is a remote control. And we'll see what is the additional advantages of WebDriver. Now, for this complete session, we are going to use this site, a Salesforce. It is a CRM site, customer relationship management site, and we are going to write test cases for this site, a functional test cases, and we are going to automate and developing a framework for this site. Apart from this, we are going to use Quicker as well as few other sites which will provide rich user interfaces to understand WebDriver. So to understand the WebDriver features, apart from the Salesforce, we start use other sites which is very popular, and you can understand how to implement your WebDriver components to automate those available sites. So let's start understanding what is element or what is web element. Before we touch IDE or before we record and play IDE test cases, we'll understand few basic terminologies we are going to use for this tool. The first tool or the first terminology we start using or we start talking about web elements. In this page, let me log out and we'll start from the home screen. So you can enter salesforce.com. You will get this screen. In this screen, we are as a manual tester. When I start verifying a login test case, today my task is verify login. As a manual tester, I go, will see the screen, I'll identify where is login button. There is a place to interact with your web application. So as a manual tester, my first step will be, I will search where is a point to interact or the point to reach the application. So I will identify this login button through my eye. But for a tool, we have to say a pointer or a location for this element. When I say web element, the web element is nothing but component of your application. Example of web element. Wherever you are typing in your screen, text boxes or button, place to click, link where you will click, a drop down box where you will select option, as well as checkbox, radio button. These are few web elements where we interact with web application, or you can read simply a text area. Text area is nothing but a place with some text where you can read by your eyes. The same way we have to mention the tool WebDriver how to read the values from the text area. So we have to tell our tool WebDriver to reach this component or element to interact. When I say user interaction, it will be typing in your text box. Click your button. Same like you will click the link area and you will select the drop down option. Check or uncheck your radio button as well as checkbox. In checkbox, you can do multiple choose or selection. But in a radio button, it is a on or off. In a group of radio buttons, you can choose only one at a time. And the text area, you can just read and storing some line. So these are called user interaction. So by telling this element locators, we are going to stimulate our tools to perform these actions. So in any automation, identifying the locators in terms of which a tool can understand is a major part. So once you identify the locators, we know how to interact and we know the test step, the flow of interaction. You can maintain the flow by telling what to do, your test cases ready. So for this, to understand these UI elements, we are going to use Firefox browser along with few plugins which is known as Firebug and Firepath. These are the Firefox plugins which will help to identify the locators in terms of CSS or XPath. CSS and XPath is nothing but locator identifier. These tools, Selenium WebDriver RC or IDE, will support few more locator strategies apart from the CSS and XPath. You can choose the ID of web element, the class of web element, the link text of web element. So we'll talk about one by one, very detailed, because if you understand what is this and if you get an idea, a knowledge about these locators, your 60% of automation task is completed. So the task in test automation. First thing, identify the locator. Decide the interaction. Set up the flow, nothing but set of your test case. The fourth one, validate. Without validating your test result, the actual versus expected, your test execution will not complete, or you cannot say pass or fail. So to do this validation as well as your nice reporting structure, we are going to use TestNG. It's a test framework tool. So by combination of all these tools, Selenium WebDriver, TestNG, Maven, we are going to develop a nice reusable framework, a hybrid framework. We are not going to fully support or fully depend on your test data, as well as we are not going to support or depend on our keywords. Our test framework will be very flexible. You can use or you can evaluate, explore the specific test framework for any web application. Any questions? We just discussed about what is these tools and what is the course content, what is the goal of this course, and what will be the final outcome or what the trainee can explore or do after this session. We discussed these things and we start the actual record and playback. Okay, the question is, what is advantage of using Selenium instead of QTP? A very simple major advantage, it is a free open source and it will support all rich HTML5 applications. The flash, Ajax, and the locator identifying is simple, and you can choose your own programming language. If the person knows Perl or Python, he can start using that. And it will support cross-browser testing. The second question is, which framework is demanding, JUnit or TestNG? You can use both, but as I told, the combination of WebDriver, TestNG is Maven. It is the most wanted one. The reason we are choosing TestNG, it has lot of additional annotation. We'll talk about what is annotation. Means you can say few keywords to control your test execution. The drawback of Selenium WebDriver, if you want to support an upcoming browser, let's say today in market, the major disadvantage of Selenium component. One thing, as I told, if there is any upcoming or new browser comes, you cannot immediately support that using your Selenium tool. You have to develop a driver for that tool and then you can use. As Selenium WebDriver doesn't have their own reporting style. They don't have their own reporting structure. Definitely, you need an additional tool to support them. And you can use only web application testing. You can use your Selenium WebDriver only for web application. The third question, does this support Windows app or desktop app? That's what I'm saying. Selenium WebDriver will support only your web application. Let's say my application have a functionality to upload something from your desktop, from your local drive or local system. You cannot use Selenium directly for that functionality. You need additional tools, either Auto IT or Sikuli, to support your desktop application. There are few ways to overcome this upload functionality, but it will not do 100%. So your Selenium will not support any web application. The next question, can you please explain that reporting testing part? See, at the end of your test execution, let's say in a manual execution, you have a test plan with you or test case document with you. At the end of the day, after your execution, you will fill the result part, pass or fail, and share the document to your colleague or your manager. So when I do my automation, there must be some outcome to show these many test cases executed and these are pass or fail. Selenium doesn't have that kind of structure. You can still log in text document, but it will not give you a full idea about your test execution. We are going to see how the testing or test result structure using TestNG. It will give you a very colorful, it will generate a simple HTML based result. You can share to your subordinates or to your colleagues to show your test execution result. The next question is, by using Auto IT, we can test desktop app through Selenium itself. There must be a purpose of all the tools. So Selenium tool is made for web application testing. Few functionalities which need or which these web applications using your desktop, you can go for Auto IT. To test desktop application, you don't need Selenium itself. You can choose your Auto IT or any other tool, test complete for your desktop application. When you say desktop application, the Selenium component will not come into picture. The next question, what are topics are necessary as far as Java is concerned to Selenium WebDriver? So here are the topics listed for core Java to understand or to start writing effectively your Selenium WebDriver test cases. So definitely you have to understand the OOP concept. OOP is nothing but object-oriented programming language, programming concept. And you should understand how to set up your Java environment. Not even to write, to execute your web application, web automation, you need a JDK setup. Your environment should support your Java. And a few basic programming concepts. What is class, object, how to initialize variables, how to create methods, how to create packages, and how to use inheritance interfaces, what is say implementing, and what are the interfaces. The reason why to understand these concepts. Go back to your Selenium site. In this download session, we have a documentation of the APIs we are using. These documentations will explain what are the components inside your jar file. To read and understand this documentation in terms of Java, let's say here they explain this abstract WebDriver event listener is a class. So without knowing core Java, you cannot understand what is class. And you have to know what are the methods for this class and how to call this method, how to use this method. We are going to talk in terms of core Java. Apart from that, we are going to understand the collections and the exceptions. By completing these core Java concepts, you can write your own core Java programs also. We are not going to cover as a point of developer. After this 8-hour session, I don't say you can start you can do your SCJP exam, but you can start prepare for your SCJP exam. This 8-hour or 9-hour core Java session will give you 60 to 70% of knowledge for a core Java to get into Java developer. So after understanding this core Java part, we start write our program. So I will show you a sample program how your WebDriver code looks like. Then you can understand why we are going core Java. So this is my Eclipse IDE, and I have seen somebody's hands raised. Any questions, Anand? By using Auto IT, we can test desktop app through Selenium method. We discussed this. If you want to test your desktop application, there is no point of choosing any Selenium components. You can directly go for desktop. So here is the project. This is a Eclipse IDE tool. If you are familiar with any other IDEs, which is no NetBeans, you can use that. If you are aware of JDeveloper, you can use that. But we prefer Eclipse IDE because it has plugins to support TestNG and Maven. You don't need to spend much time on setting up the environment when you use Eclipse. So that is the preference why we are going for Eclipse tool. So this is my first WebDriver test case. Here is the coding part of my test case. For Selenium WebDriver coding, shall we write code in detail or we will find Somaditya, I am not getting your question. If your concern is about writing a code, in our session, more than 75% will be coding only. I am not going to show any theory part, or there won't be much PPT slides to run through. Everything will be from the code. We will write the code. We will understand what is that from code. By executing the code, you will come to know how the Selenium WebDrivers work. So there is no theory part. It will be 100% coding and understanding. I am going to write in the session itself, and as a part of your side, we are going to do some assignments, or we are going to do some tasks to evaluate your knowledge of understanding. Even if we cover 9 out of 10 topics, the level of understanding from your end is must rather than content or timing. We can go for 32-33 hours if your understanding level is not satisfied. And you will get all the code dump, whatever the coding we are writing in the session, along with this video, audio, so that before or after your session, you can read, understand, practice by yourself. Any more questions? That is my concern after session, after lesson. So Maditya, can you explain more? You need something else from this section, or so I am again confirming that after each and every session, let's say we are attending session by today 9:30 to 10:30. In another 1 hour, maximum 2-3 hours, you will receive the video session. I need a time for upload, that's all. Once the upload succeeds, I will share the videos to your mail ID. Do we have any other questions to discuss? Okay. Collection is one of the most important part of Java. You can't skip that. We'll talk about collections in detail in our Java session. Collections, exceptions, inheritance, interfaces. These are 4 major topics in core Java. We'll definitely cover as much as possible in our session. Regarding collection, we'll talk about list and map, iteration. These are the topics we are going to cover in terms of collection. We are not going to talk about the difference between the collections, the tree maps, which we very rarely use. Those things we are not going to spend time. We'll talk about list, array list, map, hash map, and how to interact with this collection using iterator. We'll talk about these major topics in collection. Any other questions? There is a question. What is at test in this code? So here, if you see in this 37 lines of code, these imports and the package name is a pure Java concept. This WebDriver is a part of your Selenium component. What is this? This will help you to open the URL, application URL. This line will help you to launch browser. And this is called annotation. If this is not there, this is a simple core Java class with a method called open Google. When I put my annotation, at test is a test ng annotation. After this at test annotation, my method is known as test method, and the whole core Java class now named as test class. Anand, you got your answers? This @test is a test ng annotation which will turn your simple Java class into test class and your method into test method. Now, the next question is, JavaScript is necessary or not to learn Selenium? Selenium tool is developed using JavaScript. So, it is not must to understand the JavaScript if you are going to use Selenium. But if you have a fair idea about what is JavaScript, how it works, it will be added advantages of Selenium Automation Tester. And a very basic idea about how a HTML pages is developed. That is also the added advantages of Selenium Automation Tester. The next question will be is using Auto IT and Sikuli. Can you please Auto IT and Sikuli? I cannot say you can test 100% of desktop application, but you can. It will not be very effective. We have a tool called Test Complete and other tools which will help you for your effective desktop testing. Any more questions? Test Complete uses same script. You're talking about Selenium script can be used in Test Complete or Auto IT. Test Complete is a different tool as Selenium. It is a A to Z tool, so you have to spend time to understand what is that tool for. Okay. Questions related to your payments and how to log in or how to get login details for the upcoming session. This is a free demo. To get a connection or to get a details about the next session, you have to pay your fees. Then for the daily basis, you will get your login details. And the details will available in, this is the link where you can find your details. Everyone got the quality learning site which I shared just now? Have you got the link? Yes. Please read this page to understand how to get login credentials for the next session. And all the 30 or more than 30 sessions will be through GoToWebinar. You will get a recorded session after. Okay. Anand, can you mail me to get more details? My mail ID is, as well as you can mail contact@qualitylearning.in to get more details. Any more questions on session? The content, the outcome, the goal? Okay. Once you register for continuous session, you will get the pre-assessment document to mention what is your expectation or what is your level of understanding before you attend the session. Once we complete all the sessions, we have a post assessment to understand your level of knowledge which is improved because of this session. If your post assessment will not exceed 75%, you can take few more additional help from the trainer. That means to reach your understanding, to improve your understanding. And until 3 months after you complete your session, let's say we are completing the session on October 1st, till December last, you can reach me or you can reach the trainer to get more help on your day-to-day task. So any more questions? Thank you all. We will wind up today's session now. Hope we'll see you back on next session. You will get the details through your mail when will be the next session and the timing. Any concern about timing? Shall we continue on the same time, 9:30 to 10:30? Anybody have concerns on timing? Maven knowledge, we'll discuss about Maven knowledge in session itself. The session will be only on weekdays as of now, Monday to Friday. Okay. Please mail your timing concerns to the mail ID given. We'll discuss in person. So please note down the mail IDs which is shared just now. Mail your queries on the fees as well as timing. We'll discuss in person. Thank you all.